Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show where we talk about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Outpost. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, let's start off with everything going down in The Outpost itself. Obviously, after everything that went down last episode, you have Janzo deciding that he wants to talk to 313 because it's like, I need to understand why he did what he did. The fact is why he betrayed us, why he made the wrong choice, and talks to him, and it's like trying to explain to him, it's like, right, I thought we were friends. And truth be told, is to a weird way, like the way Janzo was kind of saying it, you're like, yeah, but almost what, I guess it's because you are treating him almost like a newborn baby, but it's like, right, a lot of those parallels could be made for a pet. That's why I'm like, it's a weird situation. It's like, you could almost, I mean, because in a weird way, you can almost make the argument he kind of was, in a sense that, like, right, like, him and Ren were just kind of using him as a means of, like, oh, just trying to understand, like, when the scientific discovery, they got so wrapped up in it, despite the warnings, they didn't pay attention to, like, right, like, they didn't fully think things through, and it's just, and it kind of led to the current circumstances, so. But, it's like, right, you're supposed to kind of choose, like, we're your friends, like, why'd you betray us? You know, you made the wrong choice, but he's like, I choose my Lakma. I will always choose my Lakma. And obviously Garrett's like, right, you know, that's why, yeah, he'll always choose his kind over us. Because that's even why Garrett was there, because Janzo was like, right, I'm going to talk to him, but just in case things do go wrong, that's why you're here. Like, the fact is, Janzo before wouldn't have said that, but now, considering everything going on, he told Garrett, like, right, I need you here just in case, like, you know, things do go sideways. And so there's a conversation between Janzo, Ren, and Garrett about what to do next. And they want to keep him alive. Garrett's like, after everything he's done, we need to kill him. Like, we can't trust him of, like, you know, especially now that the Scavenge Core has been open. Like, who's to say he won't wake the rest of them and now be an issue all on its own. Because they're trying to explain, like, right, like, at the end of the day, you know, he was just trying to rescue his child, and it's like, Garrett's like, I get that, but is there a guarantee that the fact of the matter is that if we leave him alone, that this won't become an even bigger issue? I mean, because even Janzo and Ren admit, like, right, we made a mistake doing what we do. In the grand scheme of things, was it a mistake? It's where we currently stand, it seems like it might not be, but initially it seems like it is, because they went meddling with something they didn't really understand at the time. It's like, for them, it's like, right, we have all these questions, like, what questions? It's like, we know their gods are monsters, and that's all we need to know. Like, it's not like they really know much more and can really explain beyond what they know, so. But obviously, LeVere shows up and ends up freeing him, especially when he's explaining, like, oh yeah, like, there's the soldier, then there's Janzo, and Janzo's mate, Ren, she looks like us, and it's like, oh, the abomination. It's like, right. So that's why I was like, yeah, like, it seems like that's just more clear indication of just what I've thought before, which certain aspects of this episode make me think, like, maybe it's not as clear as I thought it was, but, you know, it's like, the fact that they're considered abomination means, like, they stem from them in some shape or form. Like I said, my initial thought was, like, Astor's, like, father to all Black Bloods. Like, him and humans mating together, like, led to, like, that happening. But we'll get to it later on why I believe that's not 100% the case specifically, but we'll get there. But she's tasked him with killing Ren and Janzo, and she'll handle the soldier, Garrett. So, but just when 313 shows up to try and kill her, shows up to kill them, because Ren and Janzo were trying to think of, like, right, like, how do we, like, give Garrett, it's like, yes, he's actually making a logical, sensible, he's making a lot of sensible logic about, like, why we shouldn't keep 313 alive, that he is right. But it's like, we just need to give just one good enough reason why Garrett shouldn't kill him. And it's like the thing of, like, yes, at the end of the day, he was making the choice, like the same choice that any one of us would make. That the fact is that he's willing to go above and beyond to, like, save his child. Is how does that make 313 any different from us? And so that means, like, the fact is that, because especially for Ren, it's like wiping out the Kavi will be like, it's like, right, she already feels enough responsibility and weight about, like, the Black Bloods almost being borderlining on extinction. So, with her own comparison of, like, you know, what's in her head, but it's also like, right, I'm not going to be all about, like, genociding a whole other species that hasn't really done anything to us, you know? It's like, especially knowing, like, a lot of them are just being controlled by the Navispore from, you know, that, just like the whole, Yavala situation. So it's like, there is sympathy there and understanding of, like, once again, like, why he does what he does and why he went above and beyond. Like, it's like, not necessarily, like, it wasn't necessarily the wrong choice, because it was like, right, he was just trying to protect his child. And, you know, Janzo was trying to explain that, like, yeah, like, you didn't listen to me, like, I'm sorry I couldn't save your child, you know? But, once he finds out Ren's with child, it's like, right, Janzo's like, this is my family, like, please don't hurt them. And it's just kind of like, it made 313 kind of stop and realize his mistake. So when time came, he protected Tobin, Garrett, and he even stabbed and wounded LeVere. I'm so curious who's going to be the one that gets the final blow. Part of me's like, I kind of want it to be Garrett for justice for Tobin, but I also think, like, nah, it should be Munt as well, or maybe them together are able to kill LeVere. It's just kind of like, once again, I kept being like, Janya's the one because she's the healer, but it's like, LeVere is kind of a nuisance to the whole teleporting. I mean, they're all a nuisance in their own right, because it's like, she's got the Janya's the healer, LeVere's the teleporter. Once again, we don't even know what Galu can fully do now. Terra can, like, freaking insta-kill you if he touches you, so as long as he doesn't get his hands on you, but it's like, that's, you know, a lot of close quarters combat going to be needed to take him out, so that puts you in a lot of danger in that regard. So it's like, once again, they are all nuisances in their own right, so. But even they were surprised. They're like, oh, look, the Kavi have gotten, you know, freedom, free will. But it's like, well, it doesn't matter. Like, you know, now that, because they do have the Navi Spore, it's like, it doesn't matter. He might have free will now, but it's like, oh, he'll submit soon enough. And even, you know, Garrett's being like, oh, thank you for saving me, 313. And he's like, yeah, like, you know, and thank you for saving me. So it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, no, you've made your choice. I know which side of the battlefield you're on, so I'm not going to lock you up again. Because at the same time, let's tie this in with what happened with Zed, you know, and he just looks out, you know, when over Nedra's ashes, being like, you were right, this is a beautiful place. He gathers up her ashes, very, like, makes me think of, you know, God of War 2018. And he goes back to Munt, and he's trying to save Munt, and Munt's like, Nedra, she got away, didn't? It's like, no, we failed. And it's like, you know, and it's like, you know, Munt blames himself, but, you know, Zed is like, Nedra, there was no changing her mind once she made up her mind. And he's like, before she left, she told me that she loved you. And then Zed's like, no, she didn't, Munt. He's like, yes, she did. And he's like, no, she didn't. He's like, all right, you're right, she didn't. But I know he's like, she would never, like, Zed's like, she would never use the word love. I know that much. And it's like, but Munt's trying to make him feel better by being like, but and it is true, like, she cared very, very deeply for him. Would she ever use the word love? Who knows? Maybe they would have gotten to the point she would have been more willing to use the word love. But you know, but at the very least, like, Zed's like, I appreciate you trying, Munt, you know, and despite being injured, he's moving along, and just Munt's like, we're not going to make it back to Outpost, are we? And he's like, we are. He's like, Nedra sacrificed her life for us, and we're not going to waste it. And so he manages to, with all his strength, messed up leg, he ends up dragging Munt back, and luckily they made it in time that Janzo could check them all out. Obviously now they know, like, right, Nedra is gone, another one has been awoken. But obviously there's a conversation of, like, at the end of the day, you have Talon being the only hope left, because it's like, yeah, everything else is resting on her to figure this all out, because she's the only, like, her Kinj is the only one left in play. Because it's like, right, like, we burned Galu to ashes, but because Janya, he can come back. So it's like, so for Zed, he's like, yeah, I'm pretty sure he's been awoken and everything. So 6 of those things running amok. But obviously the surprise on everybody when it comes to like, right, 313 help protect Gary, helped save him. So but other than that, I did love the whole thing with Munt being like, oh, where's Munt Jr.? Is he playing with Janzo Jr.? And Janzo's so excited. And just Rain being like, we're not naming our child Janzo Jr. And he's like, why not? And later on, you know, they're talking to 313 and they're, you know, teaching him greetings. It's like, right, handshake. It's like, it's a greeting, but also a sign of understanding and forgiveness. You know, kind of like, we understand and forgive you, you know, because it's like, do you have any more Lockman? He's like, yeah, I have one like you. And he points at like Ren. She's like, oh, a black blood. He's like, no, like you, and points at her chest. And Jinzo slaps his hand down. It's like, oh, a female. It's like, yeah, he has a daughter. So obviously Janzo and Ren want to save her, but until they know a proper way to save everyone, like, I mean, it was like a rush job to save him, but it's like, we can't do that to an entire, there's at least like 1,000 like Kavi there. It's like, we can't, like, there's no guarantee we'd be able to do that. And that's a slow moving process. Like, beyond that, we don't know the clear way how to wake everyone up. But there's a conversation about, like, you know, giving him a name too, and it's like, he's like, oh, and he says Janzo, and Janzo's so excited, he's like, oh, and it's like, no, absolutely not, we're not naming him Janzo either. And just like, Ren's like, George, Janzo's like, George, and it's like, all right, Marvin, which I think that was already kind of like, I think if you check in the credits, I think for a while he's already been known as Marvin, I think. So that kind of spoiled that. I think I remember seeing that in the credits. But, regardless, it's nice. And he's like, I like Marvin. And Jess was like, all right, fine, he likes it. But it's like, no, it's a good fit. He's like, Marvin the Kavi. It's like, yeah. Because they're not just numbers anymore. Like, a certain other show will teach you, like, certain children don't like being just referred to as numbers. That's a whole other level of issues when it comes to parenting. But like I was saying, like, how will they end up waking the rest of the Kavi? I wonder, will it be Astor? Would he be the one to have the capabilities of doing that or something like that? I don't know. Because I'm assuming the Naviaspore would be like how you'd wake them in general, but maybe there's like a combination with the Scavicore that like lets you do that with the key or something like. I don't know. Like because I'm sure, like, I mean, the only reason why he probably knew about the combination necessary to unlock the rest of the like tombs that the Kavi were being kept in. It's like, or rather, like, well, I don't know if tombs would be right, or I don't even think coffins would be right. Pods. We'll refer to them as pods. Was because Janzo presented him the key combination, but it's like he knew enough to know, right, this is the combination needed to open it. So maybe he witnessed, like, the masters do it in that exact order before. Like, maybe that's why I don't know. I wonder, Marvin any very specific Kavi? Like, was he like a general in the army? Like, you'd assume because of his number, like, maybe that shows your ranking amongst, like, maybe like once you got, maybe when you were born or made, or maybe just like so like, him being 313, like, I'd assume like who's number one, because number one would probably be like the leader of them, maybe, or just maybe it doesn't work like that, there's a lot of questions still on that front. But other than all of this, there's the situation with Talon and Luna trying to figure out where to find Astor's body, but there's kind of no luck. Obviously Luna's just kind of like wisecracking the entire time, and even like Talon's like, is this really all a joke to you? Like, why are you like wisecracking? But again, I think truth be told, it's a defense mechanism for Luna, because it's like, yeah, she's probably a little worried and stressed. But also it's kind of like, yeah, but you're a little too wound tight, Talon, because it's like, yeah, like, you kind of carry the weight of the entire world. It's like, it's not like, I mean, because truth be told, it's like, she's been in, like, she's always carried that weight, like, over the course of, like, the series so far, because she's always had to carry the weight of, like, right, her entire village being dead and her being the only survivor, which Luna can, understand to an extent as well. Then it was like fighting the Prime Order, protecting the, Outpost. Then it was stopping Yavala. Now it's from stopping these gods. And that's also the conversation too of like, right, like these gods are like the whole Black Blood legends and stuff like that, like we're about the 7 warriors and stuff like that. And it's like, right, it does make you wonder, like the whole Black Blood religion is based off of like worshiping these gods and stuff like that. And it seems like obviously the 3 like ended up like picking up that foolish worship, because it's like, yeah, these guys are, most of them are douchebags that are willing to burn everything, to turn everything in their wick to ash, you know? So, but luckily Luna was able to hear something, and it turns out they were able to find where Astor lay. And what was interesting is his tomb was very different from the others, and so it took blood to awaken him. And there was this whole thing about like Great Father and stuff like that. I was like, okay, so that's full-blown confirmation that he is. But yeah, like initially Talon wants to kill him, but she ended up touching the crystal, and it was a message from him of like, you, the Asterkinj bearer, if you're seeing this, you need to wake me up, because that means things have gone really bad. And so now Talon doesn't know what to do, and it's like, you know, she's like, right, I made the wrong choice before. It's like, but yeah, it's not like your wrong choice led to the end of the world. And she was like, almost. I'm the reason Yavala came here in the first place. And then Luna's like, wait, what? It's like, yeah, I made that one simple wrong choice, and it almost brought the world to an end. She's like, I don't want to make that same mistake, because like, and it's like, right, so the pressure is rightly and duly on for you to like make the right choice in this regard. So at the end of the day, it's like she didn't listen to her gut when her gut told her, don't like bring Yavala and them through, but she did. And now it's like she's in this situation again of like, I have to make the right choice, because this choice can decide everything. And so it's like, what is your gut telling you? And it's like, to wake him up. And it's like, well, I trust your gut. So they wake him, and the crystal on top of him included someone's essence. And it's so interesting, because I'm like, the fact, well, because I guess that's also the thing about like all of this, like there are like, what the Dragman is hearing, what Luna's able to hear as a Dragman, like maybe like the very essence of stuff like stored in those objects, like the Skevid core and stuff like that. Then I'm like, I don't know, like, she's hearing, maybe like Dragmans in general can kind of hear souls, and maybe that's what, because I'm curious, whose life force was it in that crystal that he ended up absorbing? It's like, right, because he needed to be at full strength, but I guess it's like, I guess someone sacrificed himself to be in that crystal, like, in case he needs to wake up and be fully restored after whatever amount of time. But, he awakes, and he's like, I made a mistake. And for him, his mistake was never killing his brothers and sisters. It's like, I love, like, she's like, why did they call you the betrayer? It's like, why'd you turn against your conscience? Like, it was almost, like, interesting, like, how he, like, talks, because he was like, do you not meet the rest of my siblings? Like, just that response was interesting. It's like, but yeah, it's like, they turn everything that's in their way to ash, and it's like, I could not go along with that. Because he became fond of the inhabitants of this realm. It's like, yeah, he was kind of all about it before, but I think he had his reservations, because, like, he got attached to the beings in this realm. I mean, that's kind of sad that it took, I mean, because who knows, like, how many worlds they've conquered and turned to ash before this. You know, it seems like the Plane of Ash is one, but beyond before that, like, was that the first world they've ever conquered? Was it the second? Was it one of many? And it's just like, yeah, coming to this world changed him. Which reminds me of another thing, which I won't spoil just in case anyone's, like, just watching it now for the first time, so I won't reference what I'm going to reference. But it's like, yeah, there's a very similar thing where someone was sent on a mission to conquer, and it's just like, yeah, it's happened in many different regards. I mean, you can make the argument, like, it's not the same thing, but Goku was sent to, like, Earth to conquer in the Dragon Ball universe, but regardless, once again, his circumstances were different, but, yeah, he grew to become its greatest protector. It's not a one-for-one, but, like, you know, it's not like Superman was sitting here to be this world's conqueror, but he ended up being its greatest protector type of thing. So there's parallels you can draw in certain regards. Like I said, it's not a full one-for-one. It's not even like it's more apples to oranges, but still. But the thing I was thinking was, I think Astor, I was initially like, I think he's the father to all Black Bloods, because, like, the message in particular, but, like, looking at the wall of all the previous Asterkinj Guardians, I'm like, it's specifically Talon's bloodline, isn't it? Like, so I'm like, he's a father. Like, that's why, like, when he was talking to the one of the others, it was like, well, she referred to Talon. Well, one of the others referred to Talon as Astor's daughter, the daughter of the betrayer, and it's like, because she's from his bloodline. I think he specifically thought, like, once again, where the rest of the Black Bloods came from, like, maybe they were already inhabitants of this world, but he specifically contributed to, maybe that's why, like, they're called, because like I said, there's similarities between the gods, the Kavi, and the Black Bloods, but that's why I'm like, that's why I thought it was, Laverne was like, oh, they're abominations. Like, that was my thought, but it's like, maybe Black Bloods were already a thing in that world, and then it wasn't until, like, Astor potentially made it with one and gave birth to what is essentially Talon's bloodline. And so, you know, maybe that's what that stems from. Maybe that's what that's all about. And so that's why I was like, yeah, because her grandmother was on the list. Like, the last name on the list was her grandmother's. So obviously it passed on to her mother, and now it's passed on to her. She did an interesting thing too. Was like, I'm going back a little bit. Like, Talon giving the Kinj up is kind of crazy because it's like, amongst, you know, like, she's had this Kinj for so long. Like, Zed only had his since season 2, but Talon has had her Kinj, like, since she was a little girl. She's had it for like 13 years. Over 13 years it's been a part of her. So being separated from the first time and all that time is kind of crazy. But essentially, I think he's essentially her great ancestor. Like, I think, like, there's almost like they share a lot of the same sensibilities, you know. But I think it's fascinating because, like, he turns out, like, Astor was the last one to go to sleep. He put the rest of his siblings to sleep. He went against them, betrayed them, and I'm curious, how was it that he ended up sealing them away? At the end of the day, he's kind of like, it doesn't matter. We can't seal them away because this will happen again, so we have to kill them. And if they die, I'm curious, does that mean their kin just die with them? Because once they're gone forever. So, I mean, but they also, because, like, that is their soul, so it's like, if you like, the Kinjs, killing and destroying the Kinjs are the source of their power and everything. Is probably like, their very souls have to be destroyed. Like, that's the only way to, like, end all this and prevent it from happening again. Because it's like, yeah, they could always end up coming back. Unless you, once again, get rid of, like, because someone could always resurrect them. Like, there could always be someone who gets the green Kinj again and, like, potentially could resurrect them no matter what you did to their bodies. It could still potentially turn into that type of thing. So probably, like, wiping them out. Like, at the end of all of this, none of the Kinj are probably going to exist anymore, probably. So we'll see how that all ends up playing out. But he's basically set the stage. It's like, right, meet me at the Skevacor, we can end this. Because it's like, oh, they want him to be resurrected. It's like, right, so you can pay for your sins. And he's like, right, I've set the wheels in motion. The end is upon us type of situation. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Talon still hasn't gotten all the answers she wants, but I think next episode will clear up a lot more, kind of give full-blown clarity. This episode also presented that interesting thing of knowing, like, right, we know so little history about, like, the Kinjs and stuff like that. Like, we got some idea of when, like, for example, when Talon's dad got the Black Kinj and got sent over to the Plane of Ashes, that type of situation. But, like, when did the three get their hands on their respective Kinjs? Because obviously when Zed got his, obviously his was the only Kinj left there. So, and obviously Yavala's Kinj, the White Kinj, had already been sealed away at that point in time, like, below the Outpost. That is so fascinating that was all there underneath the Outpost. The White Kinj, as well as the Kavi and the Skevacor in general. But, like, there's just so much history we will probably never get an answer to. Just like what happened in between, like how much time passed between, like, you know, him, Astor, like, sealing his siblings away, and you know, while he was sealed away, other people, like, came and went and took the Kinjs over the years and stuff like that. It's just interesting to think about what led to all of that. So like I said, we'll probably never get, because that's a lot of history to cover, and they're probably going to keep that super ambiguous. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see where the next episode takes us with all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about. Till the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day, and goodbye.